Hello guys! So I'm going to show you one way to make a Southwest inspired pot. This is a piece I made a few years back. I made a couple like this and it's pretty simple. I was looking at a bird image like the one that I showed you in the PowerPoint, and I thought, okay, I can make something like that. So basically I'm making this form first, and then I'm going to add the tail and the head afterwards just by building up with coils. But what I've done is I've started with a couple of plastic bowls. Um, they are about the same size, so if I put those two bowls together, I can kind of see what kind of a form I could get. And I could take something like this and then smooth that out and add the extra pieces for it. When I'm doing something like that, I always want to take a paper towel, and it can be wet or dry, but I want to put that inside those bowls first, because if I try to put the clay right up against the plastic, it's going to stick too much to the plastic and I won't be able to get it out later. But I'm using the plastic to get a nice form. I already cut some clay, and I'm basically just going to kind of like squeeze it into a pretty thick looking slab. I don't want it to be too thin off the bat, even though I might want to thin it out later, because when I go to push it into the bowl, I want to be able to squeeze that clay like I would a pinch pot and kind of work it up so that it's right by the rim, but not going over the rim. And that way I can thin it out a little bit more and make sure that that's all like right up against the edge. Now you can see that didn't take too long, but I've got a couple of spots where it's a little bit below the rim. It's a little low here. And so all I want to do is just take a little coil and kind of fill in that spot or over here, so that when I go around, it feels like it makes it all the way to the rim, but that there's also a little bit of thickness there. I don't want it to be super thin right at the rim, because then when I come back after it's dried a little bit, I want to be able to put this and this together. Now these I made earlier, and they sat underneath the fan on low for about 2 hours. So depending on when you come to class, you could make them, cover them up with a plastic bag overnight so that they don't dry out. And then if you come in the next morning or the next day that you have class and uncover them and put them under the fan on low, by the time you get here, they'll have stiffened up enough that you can pop them out, remove the paper towel, and you can see if I push on them, they hold their shape a little bit. So I'm going to get that nice shape that's going to be the bottom and the top of my bird without doing too much work at all. So the next step is to get this one and this one to fit on top of one another, like so, and smooth out this surface. If you look closely, you can see there's some wrinkles on there, and those wrinkles I'm not really that concerned about, but I want it to be a smoother surface eventually. So I'm going to do that with my rib. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take some water. It's going to paint this surface. I'm going to paint this surface. I'm going to score that up so it's nice and rough. Score that surface up. And here again is another point where I might decide to let it sit for a while, not do this right away, work on something else. But another thing that I happened to do is I took a piece of clay, and while this was drying out, I left that clay just sitting inside there. So that clay is a perfect match for this clay right now. So this will be great when I go to put these two together. And then what I want to do is I want to take my fork. I'm going to kind of score in X's this way and that way across that seam, get it lined up as best I can. good. Sway in that way. And then I'm going to take little bits of this clay that's dried out a little bit, just like that much. And any place I see like a little gap, I'm going to force a little bit of that clay in there. Until I've filled any spots that look like there's going to be a crack or it's a gap. Now, once I've done all that, and I have a little more to do, I want to come back with a little bit of water. And here's where it might help if I hold it up a little bit closer to you. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start working this way and that way with my rib. And you can see that while I'm working on this seam, I can also work on that surface. And if I work in X's kind of diagonally, one way and then the next, that without too much work, maybe even come back, give it a little love, I can get rid of that seam so it doesn't look like there's a seam there at all. Now the next step would be to let this dry for a little bit because I just added some water. But after that, I could poke a hole in the top, and then I could start taking some clay, and if I wanted to, I could start coiling here and build up a form. It's a little soft right there, so I'm going to wait a little bit. But just the way I made my coil pot, I could do the same thing here and start to get this to be a little closer to 10 inches, because Mr. Walters said 10 inches. And after I've done a few coils like that, come back again with my fork and kind of work those coils together. And if this is really soft, so I'm not going to have to add any water, I might just use the back end of this, kind of hold on, start smushing that together. And within a day, I've got the beginning of a Southwest inspired pot that's got this nice round form, and it's starting to have a spout or a neck that I could turn into something like that, or I could add a slab for like a tail, or I could add wings on either side, make a different kind of bird pot. Maybe this bird pot kind of starts looking like an owl. So I'll stop there, but that's one possibility. Got about 10 of these bowls, so some of you can borrow them. But if you find any two bowls that match up, they'll work. It doesn't have to be these bowls. It could be any bowl that you like. So I'm going to go ahead, stop the recording now, and I will see you guys in class, and I'm excited to see what you guys come up with.